The massive station floated in neutral space between three solar systems, a monument to galactic cooperation that took 40 years to build. Ambassador Claire Bennett walked through the curved corridors, her shoes clicking against the metal floor with each step. She had represented Earth at the Galactic Assembly for 2 years now, and still felt like an outsider among the 47 member species. The humans were newcomers here, only 15 years since first contact, and most species treated them like children learning to walk. Claire entered the grand chamber where the assembly met twice each month. The room was enormous, with seating arranged in circular tiers that rose toward a domed ceiling. High Chancellor Vexter stood at the center podium, his gray skin catching the light from above. The Krell were an old species, proud and powerful, controlling 12 star systems and over 30 colony worlds. The Assembly recognizes Ambassador Bennett of Earth, Vexter announced, his voice carrying through the chamber without need for speakers. Claire took her assigned seat in the outer ring, the section reserved for junior members. Next to her sat Dan Morris, her military liaison, a former naval officer who understood combat better than diplomacy. "Something feels wrong today," Dan whispered. "Leaning close, I noticed," Claire replied. Watching the other ambassadors, several species were watching the humans with unusual interest. Their expressions hard to read, but definitely not friendly. Counselor Zimra of the Pelthian Trade Federation rose from his seat, his long neck extending upward in a gesture of formal address. "High Chancellor, I bring grave charges before this assembly," Zimra began, his voice thin and sharp. 3 weeks ago, a human merchant vessel entered sacred Pelthian breeding grounds in the Tertius sector. Claire felt her stomach drop. She knew every human ship by name and route. None operated anywhere near Pelthian space. "This violation of our most holy sites cannot stand," Zimra continued. "The human ship ignored all warnings, desecrated waters where our young are born, and fled before our patrol vessels could respond." Images appeared on the holographic displays throughout the chamber. They showed what looked like a human cargo ship, its identification clearly visible, hovering over a blue-green world. The planet was covered, mostly in ocean, with small island chains dotting the surface. "We demand immediate compensation," Zimra declared. 10 million credits, a formal apology from the human government, and the surrender of the ship's captain for trial under Pelthian law. The chamber erupted in discussion, voices overlapping in a dozen different languages. Claire stood quickly, requesting recognition. Vex raised one hand for silence, then gestured toward Claire. "Ambassador Bennett, how does Earth respond to these serious charges?" Claire took a deep breath, keeping her voice steady. "High Chancellor, honored members, I have no record of any human vessel in the Tertius sector during the time specified. Our merchant fleet operates under strict licensing, and every ship files detailed flight plans. I request time to investigate this matter fully before Earth makes any formal response." Zimra hissed in displeasure. "The evidence is clear. Human arrogance knows no bounds." Vexter raised his hand again. "Ambassador Bennett, the Assembly will grant Earth 30 days to investigate and respond. However, I remind you that Pelthian sacred sites are protected under Assembly law. If the charges are proven, Earth must accept responsibility." Claire nodded. Though her mind was already racing, Earth will respond appropriately. "High Chancellor, we take these charges very seriously and will discover the truth." The session continued for another hour, covering routine trade disputes and resource allocation. Claire barely listened, her thoughts focused on the accusation. Dan leaned close again. "That ship in the images, I've never seen that configuration in our fleet. The hull markings are right, but something about the design is off." After the session ended, Claire returned to the human diplomatic quarters, a small suite of rooms in the station's residential section. She immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. The signal encrypted and bounced through 3 relay stations. This is Ambassador Bennett. Priority 1 communication for Earth Defense Command. The screen flickered, and within minutes, a face appeared. Admiral Kyle Harrison looked tired. His gray hair slightly messy, as if he had just woken up. Ambassador, what's the situation? Claire explained everything. The charges, the images, the 30-day deadline. Harrison listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. Ambassador, I can confirm we have no ships in that sector. I'll launch a full investigation immediately. Send me everything they showed you. Every image, every data file. If someone is trying to frame us, we need to know who and why. Claire transferred the files, watching the progress bar on her screen. Admiral, something about this feels coordinated. The way Zimra presented it. The other species watching us, it felt rehearsed. Harrison nodded slowly. Trust your instincts. Ambassador, the Peltians have been pushing for access to our reactor technology for months. This could be pressure to force negotiations. Keep your head down and play diplomatic. Let me handle the investigation. If this is a setup, we'll find proof. The connection ended. Leaving Claire alone with her thoughts, Dan entered the room carrying 2 cups of coffee. A luxury on the station. You think they're lying? He asked, handing her a cup. I think someone is lying, Claire replied. Whether it's the Pelthians or someone else using them, I don't know yet. But Earth doesn't make mistakes like this. Our merchant captains are too careful, too professional. Dan sat down heavily in a chair. What worries me is how many species seemed unsurprised by the accusation, like they expected it. Claire sipped her coffee, the warmth helping her think, start monitoring communications, anything unusual. I want to know what the other species are saying when they think we're not listening. Over the next 2 days, Claire attended routine meetings and social functions. Playing the role of concerned ambassador, she apologized for the alleged violation. While maintaining Earth's need to investigate, most species accepted this gracefully. But Claire noticed patterns. The Krell delegation avoided her completely. 3 other species, all allied with the Krell, made pointed comments about human recklessness. The Pelthians demanded immediate action, rejecting any suggestion that the evidence might be wrong. On the 3rd night, Dan knocked on her door after midnight. You need to see this, he said. His face pale, he showed her his tablet, displaying intercepted communications. The encryption was basic, almost deliberately easy to break. The Pelthians and Krell have been coordinating, Dan explained. There are references to the plan, and teaching the humans their place. Claire read through the messages, her anger growing. They fabricated this. The whole thing is designed to humiliate Earth, force us into unfavorable agreements. Can we prove it? Dan shook his head. Not yet. The messages are vague enough to deny. But there's more. At least 4 other species are involved. This is bigger than we thought. Claire stood and walked to the window. Looking out at the stars, send everything to Admiral Harrison. Earth needs to know we're dealing with a conspiracy, not a simple dispute. And Dan, start preparing for the possibility that diplomacy won't solve this. If they're willing to fabricate evidence, they won't stop at one attempt. Dan nodded and left to send the encrypted transmission. Claire remained at the window, watching a human supply ship dock at the station. The vessel was small compared to most alien ships, a reminder of how new humanity was to the galactic stage. But Claire knew something the other species had. Forgotten Earth had survived wars, plagues, and near extinction before reaching the stars. Humanity learned long ago that threats must be met with strength, not just words. She picked up her tablet and began composing a message to her government. Whatever Earth decided to do, the response would be clear, direct, and unmistakable. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's patience should never be confused with weakness. Admiral Kyle Harrison stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva. surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and ship positions. The room hummed with activity as officers analyzed data streaming in from across human space. Captain Shaw is approaching the coordinates now, reported Lieutenant Jake Sullivan, the youngest member of Harrison's intelligence team. The main screen showed Captain Linda Shaw's investigation ship, the Pathfinder, a sleek vessel designed for deep space reconnaissance. Linda Shaw had served in Earth's defense fleet for 15 years, rising through the ranks because of her sharp mind and unwavering dedication to truth. Captain Shaw, this is Geneva Command. Harrison spoke into the communications array. What's your status? Linda's voice came through clear despite the distance. Admiral, we've reached the coordinates where the alleged violation occurred. Running full spectrum scans now. The crew aboard Pathfinder worked quickly, their instruments sweeping the area around the Pelthian breeding world. Dr. Peter Grant, the xenobiology specialist, monitored readings from his station. Admiral, I'm not detecting any trace of human technology, Grant reported. No residual engine signatures. No waste heat patterns. Nothing. Our ships leave very specific markers in subspace. And there's zero evidence here. Harrison leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the console. Could the traces have degraded over 3 weeks? Negative, sir, Grant replied. Human fusion drives leave isotope traces that last months. If one of our ships was here, we'd still detect it. Jake Sullivan suddenly straightened at his station, his eyes widening. Admiral, I'm picking up something unusual. There's a surveillance device hidden in orbit around the planet. Krell design. Military grade. The room fell silent. Harrison felt cold certainty settling in his chest. Captain Shaw, can you retrieve that device? Linda's response was immediate. Already on it. Admiral, deploying recovery drone now. The screen showed a small drone launching from Pathfinder, moving toward the coordinates Jake had identified. The device was small, barely larger than a football, but its presence changed everything. Why would the Krell have military surveillance watching a Pelthian breeding ground? Grant asked. Harrison didn't answer immediately, his mind working through the implications. Because they were watching for us, he finally said. They planted evidence, fabricated the whole incident, and had cameras ready to record it. The drone returned to Pathfinder with the surveillance device within an hour. Captain Shaw and her team had cracked its data storage. Admiral, you need to see this, Linda said, her voice tight with anger. The screen filled with video footage. It showed a ship that resembled a human merchant vessel approaching the planet, but as the team enhanced the images, details became clear. That's not one of ours, Grant stated firmly. The whole configuration is close, but the engine placement is wrong, and those markings are painted on. Not standard issue. Jake worked at his console, running the footage through analysis programs. Admiral, the ship's movement patterns don't match human flight characteristics. Our pilots use specific approach vectors. This ship flies like a Krell vessel trying to imitate us. Harrison felt his jaw tighten. They built a fake ship, flew it to the planet, recorded it, and presented it as evidence. This wasn't just a diplomatic maneuver. This was a coordinated operation. Captain Shaw, return to base immediately. I want that surveillance device in our labs for full analysis over the next week. Teams across Earth's military and intelligence networks worked around the clock. Jake Sullivan coordinated with agents stationed at the assembly, monitoring communications between member species. What they found painted a disturbing picture. 6 species had been meeting secretly for months, coordinating what they called the Human Limitation Initiative. The goal was to keep Earth politically weak, prevent humanity from gaining influence in the assembly. The conspiracy included the Krell Dominion, the Pelthian Trade Federation, and 4 smaller allied species. They planned to use the fabricated incident to force Earth into accepting unfavorable trade agreements and technology sharing demands. They see us as a threat. Jake explained during a briefing with Harrison and the Earth Unified Council, not militarily. They don't believe we have serious weapons, but economically and politically, they're worried about human influence. Council Chairman Gregory Stone listened carefully, his weathered face showing concern. Admiral Harrison, what are our options? Harrison stood, activating a display that showed Earth's military capabilities. We have 3 choices. Mr. Chairman, first, we present our evidence diplomatically and demand an apology. Second, we withdraw from the assembly entirely. Third, we demonstrate that threatening Earth has consequences. What do you recommend? Stone asked. Harrison took a deep breath. Sir, if we respond with just diplomacy, they'll try again. If we withdraw, we lose any voice in galactic affairs. I recommend we show them exactly what Earth is capable of, not with violence, but with a display of strength they can't ignore. The council debated for 6 hours. Arguments flew back and forth about proportional response, galactic relations, and long-term consequences. Finally, Stone called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Earth would respond, and the response would be overwhelming. Admiral Harrison, you have authorization for Operation Steel Reminder, Stone declared. Show them that humanity will not be manipulated. Harrison saluted. Yes, sir. They wanted to test Earth's resolve. They're about to get their answer. The orders went out within hours. Every military installation on Earth and her colonies received the same directive. Mobilize for deployment. Captain Linda Shaw received new orders assigning her to the fleet's vanguard. Jake Sullivan was promoted and attached to the Admiral's staff for Intelligence Coordination. Dr. Grant began briefing ship commanders on alien psychology and likely reactions across human space. The military machine that had been quietly building for 15 years began to move. Shipyards that had operated in secrecy accelerated. Production training facilities released thousands of combat-ready pilots. Research stations shared weapons data that no alien species knew existed. The scale of Earth's mobilization was staggering. 200 warships, including 12 full carrier groups, prepared for immediate deployment. Ground forces numbering over 100,000 troops were placed on standby. The entire operation took 72 hours from authorization to full readiness. At the assembly station, Ambassador Claire Bennett received a secure transmission from Admiral Harrison. She read the orders twice, hardly believing what she was seeing. Dan, look at this, she said, showing the message to her military liaison. Dan Morris read carefully, then looked up with a grim smile. About time Earth stopped playing nice. Claire felt a mix of emotions. She was a diplomat, trained to seek peaceful solutions, but she was also human, and she understood that sometimes peace required showing strength. Harrison wants me to request an emergency assembly session, Claire said. That will alert them something's coming. That's the point. Dan replied, we want them worried, off balance. When we present our evidence, they need to already be doubting their plan. Claire composed the request. Keeping the language formal but urgent, she sent it through official channels, ensuring every species would see it within hours. High Chancellor Wexler responded, granting the emergency session. The meeting was scheduled for 5 days from now. Plenty of time for Earth's fleet to reach assembly space. Claire began preparing her presentation, working with Jake Sullivan remotely to organize the evidence. They had recordings, data files, analysis reports, and the surveillance device itself, everything needed to prove the conspiracy beyond any doubt. On the 4th day, Claire received word that the fleet had entered the outer regions of assembly. Spaceships were spreading out, taking positions around key locations. The deployment was impossible to hide. Every species with sensors could detect the massive Human presence panic rippled through the assembly species that had nothing to do with the conspiracy sent urgent messages to Earth, requesting clarification. The Krell and Pelthians maintained public silence, but their private communications show growing. Alarm Claire watched reports coming in from the fleet human ships were performing maneuvers that defied known physics fighter squadrons executed. Formations that required impossible precision destroyers disabled. Krell patrol vessels using electronic warfare. Never firing a single weapon. They're seeing what we can really do. Dan observed. 15 years they thought we were primitive. Now they're learning the truth. Claire nodded. Feeling a strange sense of pride, mixed with apprehension, Earth had held back, presenting itself as weak to avoid conflict, but weakness had invited attack. So now strength would ensure peace the night before the emergency session. Claire stood in her quarters looking at her formal uniform. Tomorrow, she would walk into that chamber, not as a junior ambassador, but as the voice of a humanity that would no longer be underestimated. Admiral Harrison sent a final message. Ambassador, remember that we seek justice, not revenge. Our strength is meant to protect, not to conquer. Show them who we really are. Claire sealed the message and prepared for sleep tomorrow. The Galactic Assembly would learn that threatening Earth was the worst mistake they could make. General Marcus Webb walked through the massive hangar bay where transport ships were loading troops and equipment. He had commanded Earth's ground forces for 8 years, preparing for a war he hoped would never come now. That preparation would serve a different purpose, showing the galaxy that humanity was not to be trifled with. General, the last battalion is boarding now, reported his aide. Colonel Amy Foster. Amy was young for her rank, only 32, but she had earned her position through exceptional tactical skill. Good, Marcus replied. I want every unit ready for immediate deployment if the fleet needs support. The scale of Operation Steel Reminder was unlike anything Earth had attempted since the formation of the Unified Defense Force. 60% of the entire military was mobilizing. A show of force designed to shock the Galactic Assembly into understanding. Marcus checked his tablet. Reviewing deployment orders, the fleet had already reached assembly space, and reports were coming in of alien reactions. Most species were terrified, some were confused, and the conspirators were trying desperately to downplay the situation. Colonel Foster, what's the status of our fighter wings? Amy consulted her datapad. All 12 carrier groups report full operational capacity. Sir, we have over 2,000 fighter craft ready for deployment. Pilots are rotating through briefings on rules of engagement. Marcus nodded approvingly. The fighters were Earth's pride. Small craft that could outmaneuver anything the alien species flew. Lieutenant Amy Foster's own sister was among the pilots, one of the best in the fleet, in orbit around the assembly station. The human fleet continued its calculated display of power. Admiral Kyle Harrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Defender, watching tactical displays track every ship in the formation. The Defender was Earth's newest and most advanced warship, a heavy cruiser bristling with weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Admiral, we're receiving multiple hails from Assembly Security, reported the communications. Officer, they're demanding we reduce our presence and explain our intentions. Harrison smiled slightly. Tell them we are here for the emergency assembly session that Ambassador Bennett requested. Our ships are maintaining peaceful positions and violating no assembly regulations. It was technically true. Every human vessel remained outside restricted zones, making no threatening moves, but their sheer number and the precision of their formations sent an unmistakable message. Captain Linda Shaw commanded one of the destroyer squadrons, her ship Pathfinder now accompanied by 5 sister vessels. Captain, we're being shadowed by a Krell heavy cruiser, her tactical officer reported. Linda studied the display. The Krell ship was massive, Nearly twice the size of Pathfinder. Maintain current heading, she ordered. If they want to watch, let them watch. Helm, execute pattern Delta 7. The Pathfinder and her squadron suddenly accelerated, their formation shifting into a complex weaving pattern. The Krull cruiser tried to follow, but the human ships moved with impossible synchronization within minutes. The squadron had repositioned themselves, with the Krull vessel now surrounded. Linda opened a channel. Krull cruiser. This is Captain Shaw of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. You appear to be lost. Do you require navigation assistance? The Krull commander's response was filled with anger and humiliation. Human vessel, your maneuvers are aggressive and unwelcome. Then stop following us, Linda replied calmly. Pathfinder out. The squadron jumped away, leaving the Krull ship alone and embarrassed across the fleet. Similar encounters were playing out. Human ships were demonstrating capabilities that shocked the alien observers. Formations that required quantum-linked navigation computers executed perfectly. Electronic warfare systems jammed alien sensors without causing permanent damage in everywhere. The humans remained polite, professional, and absolutely unyielding. High Chancellor Vegster sat in his private office, reviewing intelligence reports with growing dread. How many human ships are in our space? He demanded his aide, a younger Krull named Tharzan. Consulted multiple sources. Current count is 207. High Chancellor, and the number keeps increasing. Vexter felt cold fear settling in his chest. The Krull Dominion had the largest military in the Assembly, but even they only maintained 400 active warships. Earth had deployed half that number in just a few days. What are our intelligence agencies saying about human military capacity? Tharzan hesitated before answering. Sir, our previous assessments were apparently wrong. Very wrong. Earth has been building military infrastructure for years while maintaining the appearance of weakness. Current estimates suggest they have at least 400 warships total, possibly more. Their technology level is far beyond what we believed. Vexter stood and walked to his window, looking out at the human fleet visible in the distance. Each ship blazed with running lights. A constellation of human power. Contact Counselor Zimra. Vexter ordered. Tell him we need to meet immediately. This situation is spiraling out of control. Zimra of the Pelthian Trade Federation was equally disturbed when he arrived at Vexter's office an hour later. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic manipulation. The Pelthian leader hissed. How did we miscalculate so badly? Vexter paced the room. Because we underestimated them. We assumed humanity was like other young species, eager to please, afraid to offend. Instead, they were watching, learning, and building. What do we do? Zimra asked. The emergency assembly session is tomorrow. If Ambassador Bennett has evidence of our conspiracy, this could destroy our political standing. And if she doesn't, Vexter countered, we could deny everything. Claim the humans are overreacting. Zimra's long neck drooped. Look at their fleet. Vexter, they know. If they didn't have proof, they wouldn't have mobilized like this on the assembly station. Claire Bennett prepared for the most important presentation of her career. Dan Morris helped her organize data files and physical evidence. The surveillance device is in a secure case. Dan reported. We'll present it during the session as proof of Krull involvement. Claire reviewed her notes for the 20th time. Admiral Harrison will be present with General Webb. They're representing Earth's military during the session. That's unprecedented. Dan observed, ambassadors don't usually bring military commanders to diplomatic proceedings. We're not having a usual diplomatic proceeding. Claire replied, we're delivering an ultimatum. The word hung in the air between them. Claire had been a diplomat her entire career, trained to find common ground and peaceful solutions, but sometimes peace required strength, and justice required consequences. What if they refuse our demands? Dan asked quietly. Claire met his eyes. Then Earth enforces them. Admiral Harrison has full authorization from the Unified Council. This ends tomorrow. One way or another, Jake Sullivan worked through the night in his temporary office on the station, coordinating with intelligence teams across human space. The evidence against the conspirators was overwhelming: intercepted communications, financial records showing payments for the fake ship construction, testimony from unwitting participants. We have everything we need, Jake reported to Ambassador Bennett via secure channel. No one can deny this conspiracy existed. Claire thanked him and closed the connection. She stood and walked to the window of her quarters. Looking out at the human fleet, the ships hung in perfect formation, a geometric pattern that spoke of discipline and power. Each vessel represented thousands of hours of human labor, ingenuity, and determination. Tomorrow, those ships would provide the backdrop for Earth's ultimatum. Claire wondered what the other species would choose. Would they accept responsibility and make amends? Or would they force Earth to demonstrate just how far humanity was willing to go? She thought about all the species in the assembly, most of whom had nothing to do with the conspiracy. Those innocent species needed to see that Earth sought justice, not domination. The response had to be brutal enough to deter future threats, but measured enough to maintain galactic peace. It was a difficult balance. But Claire believed Admiral Harrison understood. Had prepared for this moment his entire career. The next morning, Claire dressed in her formal diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim. Representing Earth's oceans and sky, she attached her credentials and checked her appearance in the mirror behind her. Dan Morris stood in full military dress, his decorations marking him as a combat veteran. Ready? He asked. Claire took a deep breath. Let's go show them who we are. They walked through the station corridors toward the assembly chamber. Other ambassadors stared as they passed, some with fear, others with curiosity. At the entrance to the chamber, Admiral Kyle Harrison and General Marcus Webb waited. Both men wore their dress uniforms, medals gleaming on their chests. Ambassador. Harrison greeted her with a respectful nod. Admiral. General, Claire replied. Thank you for being here. Wouldn't miss it, Marcus said with a slight smile. The four humans entered the chamber together. The room fell silent. Every species present turned to watch as Claire walked to the human section, flanked by Earth's top military commanders. High Chancellor Vexter stood at the central podium, his expression carefully neutral. The emergency session is called to order, he announced. Ambassador Bennett, you requested this meeting. The assembly is prepared to hear your presentation. Claire stood, data tablet in hand behind her. The human fleet lit up the viewports. 200 ships in perfect formation, honored members of the Galactic Assembly. Claire Bennett activated the holographic display system, and images filled the chamber above every delegate's head. The first image showed the surveillance device recovered from orbit around the Palthean breeding world. This is Krell military technology, Claire stated. We found it watching the exact location where a human ship allegedly violated sacred grounds. Strange that the Krell would have surveillance equipment monitoring Palthean territory, don't you think? Counselor Zimra rose from his seat, neck extending in agitation. This proves nothing. The Krell have legitimate security interests in that sector. Claire didn't even look at him. The device's data storage contained footage of the alleged incident. Let me show you what we found. The hologram shifted, showing the fake human ship approaching the planet. Claire zoomed in on specific details. Notice the engine configuration? Human fusion drives have a specific signature. This ship's engines are mounted wrong. The hull markings are painted, not manufactured, and the flight pattern matches Krell navigation protocols, not human ones. She paused, letting the evidence sink in. This ship is a fake, built to frame Earth for a violation that never occurred. High Chancellor Vexter leaned forward, his gray skin pale. Ambassador Bennett, these are serious accusations. Do you have proof of who built this vessel? Jake Sullivan had prepared while Claire brought up financial records, manufacturing orders, communications between conspirators. Over the past 8 months, 6 species coordinated what they called the Human Limitation Initiative. Claire explained, the goal was to politically weaken Earth, prevent us from gaining influence in the Assembly, the Krell Dominion, Pelthian Trade Federation, and 4 allied species worked together to fabricate this incident. She displayed intercepted communications, each message tagged with sender and recipient information. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Ambassadors throughout the chamber reacted with shock. Species not involved in the conspiracy turned to glare at those who were. This is outrageous slander. Zimra shouted, we demand you retract these false claims. Admiral Kyle Harrison stood slowly, his movement deliberate and commanding. The chamber fell silent as the human military commander walked to stand beside Claire. There will be no retractions, Harrison said, his voice carrying absolute certainty. Earth is investigated thoroughly and found irrefutable proof of conspiracy. The question before this assembly is simple. What are the consequences? Vexler struggled to maintain control of the session. Admiral, the Assembly appreciates Earth's investigation. Perhaps we can form a committee to review the evidence and recommend appropriate actions. No. Harrison replied flatly. The single word hung in the air like a weapon. Earth will not wait for committees or recommendations. Harrison continued, we are presenting our response now. The conspirators will issue public apologies, acknowledging their fabrication and conspiracy. All individuals directly involved will resign from their assembly positions immediately. The 6 conspirator species will pay reparations to Earth in the form of technology, sharing agreements worth 50 billion credits. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species shouted objections, demands, and protests. Harrison simply waited, his expression unchanging. General Marcus Webb stepped forward, and the chamber quieted again. Furthermore, Webb added, the conspirator species will submit to human military oversight for a period of 10 years. Earth will assign advisors to review and approve all military deployments and actions by these species. This is to ensure no future conspiracies threaten galactic peace. Counselor Zimura's voice rose to a shriek. You cannot make such demands. The Assembly will never accept this. Claire spoke again, her voice cold. You have 24 hours to comply. If our demands are not met, Earth will enforce them. Supreme Commander Krelthur, the military leader of the Krell Dominion, stood for the first time. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, his gray skin marked with battle scars. You threaten the Krell Dominion? He rumbled. With what? Your small fleet? Your primitive weapons? Admiral Harrison smiled, and the expression was not kind. Jake. Show them. Jake Sullivan activated a program from his remote station on Earth. The holographic display shifted, showing tactical readouts of the human fleet. But these weren't simple position markers. They were complete capability assessments, weapon specifications, and combat projections. Earth currently has 207 warships in assembly space. Harrison explained. Each vessel is equipped with weapon systems you've never encountered. Quantum-linked point defense that can intercept thousands of targets simultaneously. Plasma weapons that can cut through any known shielding. Electronic warfare capabilities that can disable your ships without firing a shot. He brought up comparative analysis. Our intelligence estimates suggest the combined military strength of all assembly species is approximately 1,500 active warships. Earth could engage that entire fleet and achieve a 73% probability of victory. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Supreme Commander Krelthur stared at the data, his confidence visibly shaken. This is impossible. He whispered, "You've been members for 15 years. How could you build such capability without our knowledge?" General Webb answered, "Because you underestimated us. You thought we were primitive, weak, eager to please, while you looked down on humanity. We were building, training, and preparing for exactly this moment." Vexter found his voice again. "Even if what you say is true, you cannot threaten the entire assembly. Most species had nothing to do with this conspiracy. We seek justice for the innocent as much as consequences for the guilty." Claire's tone softened slightly. "High Chancellor, we understand that most species here are not our enemies. Our demands target only those who conspired against Earth. But make no mistake, if those species refuse to accept responsibility, we will enforce our demands, and any species that attempts to interfere will be treated as hostile." Dan Morris stepped forward with a sealed container. "We brought the surveillance device as physical evidence," he said. "Any species is welcome to examine it and verify our analysis." "We hide nothing." Admiral Harrison brought up a new display, showing the human fleet's current positions as of this moment. "Our ships surround every major installation in assembly space. We control all primary jump points. No vessel enters or leaves without our permission. This is not an occupation. It's a demonstration. When our demands are met, we will withdraw to normal positions and resume peaceful operations." He paused, making eye contact with species representatives throughout the chamber. "But if anyone tests our resolve, they will discover that Earth does not bluff." Vexter looked around the chamber, seeing fear and uncertainty on every face. "The Assembly requests a recess to consider Earth's demands," he said quietly. "Denied." Harrison replied, "You have 24 hours from the moment I finish speaking. That time has already begun. Use it wisely." Claire stepped forward again, her diplomat's training allowing her to soften the message slightly. "Honored members, Earth does not seek to dominate the Assembly. We seek to ensure that conspiracy and fabrication are punished, that justice is served, and that no species ever again believes humanity can be manipulated without consequences. The conspirators made a calculated attack on Earth's reputation and sovereignty. Our response is equally calculated. Brutal, yes, but measured. We leave you with a choice. Accept our terms and rebuild trust, or refuse and face enforcement." Admiral Harrison added one final point. "Earth's fleet will demonstrate our capabilities in 1 hour. Watch carefully. What you see will help you make an informed decision." The 3 military officers and Claire turned and walked from the chamber together. Behind them, chaos erupted as species argued, debated, and panicked in the corridors outside. Claire let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That went exactly as planned. Dan said, "Now we wait to see how they respond." Harrison checked his communicator. "The fleet is ready for the demonstration. General Webb, are ground forces prepared if needed?" "Standing by, Admiral." Marcus confirmed. They walked to the human diplomatic quarters, where screens showed feeds from throughout the assembly station. Species were in frantic communication with their home governments. The conspirators were meeting in closed sessions, arguing about their options, and everywhere, beings watched the human fleet with mixture of fear and awe. 1 hour until we show them what Earth can really do," Harrison said. "Let's hope they're smart enough to learn the lesson." Claire sat down, suddenly exhausted. She had just delivered an ultimatum backed by overwhelming force. It was the opposite of everything she had trained for as a diplomat, but deep down, she knew it was necessary. The galaxy operated on strength, not kindness. Earth had tried being the friendly newcomer. That path led to conspiracy and attack. Now, humanity would show the galaxy a different side, the side that survived wars, conquered plagues, and reached for the stars despite every obstacle. The side that, when threatened, responded with brutal clarity outside the viewport. The human fleet began moving into demonstration formation in 23 hours. The Galactic Assembly would give their answer, and Earth would show them exactly what that answer cost. The human fleet demonstration began exactly 1 hour after Admiral Harrison's ultimatum. Every species in assembly space watched as 200 ships executed maneuvers that defied conventional understanding. Captain Linda Shaw led her destroyer squadron through a formation that required quantum-precise timing, 6 ships moving as one entity, weaving through space in patterns that would be impossible without technology far beyond what the part assembly possessed. All units execute pattern Omega. Shaw commanded the entire human fleet. Suddenly shifted ships that had been spread across millions of kilometers jumped simultaneously to new positions within 30 seconds. They formed a perfect sphere around the assembly station. The sphere rotated slowly, each ship maintaining exact distance from its neighbors. Then, in a display that left alien observers speechless, every human vessel fired a single plasma round. 200 shots, launched from different angles and distances, all converged on a single point in space. The plasma bolts struck simultaneously, creating a brief star of energy. The precision was absolute, the timing impossible. On the bridge of the Defender, Admiral Kyle Harrison watched the reactions from assembly species. "They're getting the message," reported his tactical officer. "Intercepts show widespread panic among the conspirator species." Harrison nodded. "Good. Fear is a teacher. Let them learn what it means to threaten Earth." The fleet shifted again, this time demonstrating electronic warfare capabilities. Human ships released clouds of micro-drones that swarmed around alien vessels. Sensors went dark. Communications were jammed. Navigation systems reported false positions, all without causing permanent damage within minutes. The human fleet had effectively blinded and isolated every non-human ship in the sector. Then, just as suddenly, the drones retreated and systems restored. The message was clear. Earth could disable the entire assembly fleet whenever it chose. High Chancellor Vexter sat in an emergency meeting with the conspirators and several neutral species leaders. "We have no choice," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "Earth has demonstrated capabilities we cannot match. If we refuse their demands, they will enforce them, and the cost will be far worse." Councillor Zimmer's neck drooped in submission. "The Pelthian Trade Federation cannot survive a conflict with Earth. Our merchant fleet would be helpless against their warships, Supreme Commander." Krelther was the last to concede. "The Krell Dominion has never submitted to ultimatums," he growled. The neutral ambassador, representing the peaceful Theran collective, spoke up. "Commander, this is not submission. This is accepting consequences for actions taken. Your conspiracy threatened galactic peace." Earth's response, while harsh, is measured compared to what they could do. Another neutral species representative added support. "If the situations were reversed, if any of us had been framed in such a conspiracy, would we not demand justice? Earth is showing remarkable restraint. They could have simply destroyed the conspirators' homeworlds. Instead, they offer a path to redemption." Vexter looked around the room. "We vote now. Those in favor of accepting Earth's demands?" One by one, the conspirators raised their hands. The vote was unanimous 18 hours after Harrison's ultimatum. Vexter requested a meeting with the human delegation. Claire Bennett sat across from the High Chancellor in a private conference room. Admiral Harrison and General Webb stood behind her. Vexter began. "The Galactic Assembly has reviewed Earth's demands. The conspirator species accept full responsibility for the fabricated incident." He placed the data tablet on the table. Public apologies are being prepared. All individuals directly involved will resign their positions. Within the week, reparation agreements are being drafted with terms acceptable to Earth, and we accept human military oversight. For the specified period, Claire studied the High Chancellor carefully. Why did you do it? She asked quietly. Why conspire against Earth? Vexler was silent for a long moment. Fear, he finally admitted. In 15 years, humanity advanced faster than any species in assembly history. Your innovation, your adaptability, your drive to succeed. We feared that in another 15 years, you would dominate us all. So you tried to limit us before we became too powerful. Harrison said. Vexler nodded. It was foolish. We created the very thing we feared. By attacking Earth, we forced you to reveal your true strength. Now everyone knows what humanity is capable of. General Webb spoke for the first time. High Chancellor, Earth did not want this confrontation. We would have preferred peaceful cooperation. But we learned long ago that threats must be met with strength. Otherwise, they multiply. Claire leaned forward. The oversight period isn't punishment alone. Earth will share defensive technology with the conspirator species. We'll train your forces in new tactics. The goal is to make you stronger, not weaker, but also to ensure you never again consider conspiracy over cooperation. Vexler looked surprised. You would strengthen those who attacked you? We would strengthen potential allies. Harrison corrected. The galaxy faces challenges none of us can handle alone. Earth needs partners, not subjects. This oversight ensures future partnership, not continued enmity. The formal acceptance was presented to the full assembly the next day. Every conspirator species issued public apologies. The statements were broadcast across the galaxy, ensuring all civilizations understood what had occurred. Resignations followed swiftly. Counselor Zimra stepped down from the Pelthian Trade Federation leadership. Supreme Commander Kralthor retired from military service. Dozens of other officials across 6 species left their positions. The reparation agreements were complex, detailing technology transfers, trade concessions, and resource sharing. Earth gained access to advanced manufacturing techniques, exotic materials, and scientific knowledge in return. Earth committed to defending the conspirator species against external threats during the oversight period. The most controversial element was the military advisors. Within 2 weeks, human officers were stationed on Krell, Pelthian, and allied species military installations. Their role was oversight, not command. They reviewed deployment orders, advised on tactics, and ensured no aggressive actions were planned. Captain Linda Shaw was assigned to the Krell Dominion. Working directly with their fleet command, she found the Krell officers initially hostile, resentful of human presence. But as weeks passed, professional respect developed. Your targeting systems are 20 years behind Earth standard, Linda told Krell Fleet Commander Tharzan during a review. With modifications, you could improve accuracy by 40%. Tharzan, the young Krell who had served as Vexler's aide, studied the proposed changes. Why would you help us improve our weapons? He asked suspiciously. Because strong allies are better than weak enemies, Linda replied. Earth doesn't want you helpless. We want you capable, but aligned with galactic peace. Jake Sullivan coordinated intelligence sharing between Earth and the oversight species. The conspirators had extensive spy networks that, when redirected toward external threats rather than assembly members, proved valuable. There's a pirate confederation operating in the outer reaches, Jake reported during a coordination meeting. Krell intelligence has been tracking them for months. Combined with Earth sensor technology, we can eliminate the threat. The joint operation was planned and executed within a week. Human ships provided electronic warfare support, while Krell vessels engaged the pirates directly. The pirate fleet was destroyed with minimal casualties as the first military cooperation between Earth and the former conspirators more would follow. General Marcus Webb established training programs on Pelthian worlds. Human ground forces instructed Pelthian soldiers in advanced tactics. Your troops are brave, but rely too heavily on technology, Marcus told the Pelthian military leader. When systems fail, they panic. We'll teach them to fight with or without technology. The training was grueling, but the Pelthian forces improved dramatically. What started as punishment became partnerships 6 months after the ultimatum. Ambassador Claire Bennett stood before the Galactic Assembly again. Chamber was different now. Earth occupied a permanent seat on the Security Council. Recognition of their demonstrated power. The conspirator species sat in their usual places, but their delegations included human advisors, honored members. Claire began. Earth wishes to propose a new initiative, a mutual defense pact among all assembly species. We have seen what cooperation can achieve. Let us build on that foundation. The proposal detailed shared military resources, coordinated defense strategies, and joint training programs. Species would maintain sovereignty over their forces, but coordinate against common threats. The vote was overwhelmingly positive. Only 3 species abstained, and none voted against. The assembly was transforming from a loose confederation into a unified defensive alliance, with Earth as the military backbone. Admiral Harrison retired 6 months later. His mission accomplished. At his retirement ceremony, representatives from every assembly species attended. Even Supreme Commander Krelther, now a civilian advisor, came to pay respects. You taught us a valuable lesson, Admiral, Krelther said during the reception, that strength without wisdom leads to defeat, but wisdom without strength invites attack. Earth has both, and now through you, so do we. Harrison shook the Krell's hand. The lesson goes both ways. Commander, we learned that galactic cooperation requires trust, and trust requires accountability.